अच्छा फिर तो बहुत अच्छा।
हाँ बिल्कुल करीब से, तो इसलिए मेरे ख्याल से दूर आना
Alhamdulillah.
ये मेरे husband है, पता है आपको?
जी, I've met him. I think when you brought the children on the Eid party. Yes.
आपकी मेमोरी बहुत शार्प है, माशाल्लाह।
It's really nice to see you.
So, my name is Penny Culliford. I'm the chaplain at YMCA Thames Gateway, which you are here. In our lovely, newly refurbished room. So, thank you very much and welcome.
Good evening, and my name is Tariq Mahmood. I am Vice Chair of the Hebrew Interfaith Forum. Thank you for attending and welcome to the Interfaith Discussion on organ donation. So today there will be different perspectives on organ donation from faith speakers. We all have a faith perspective. I'm not a medical doctor, but there is a doctor in the audience. If we go wrong, he will correct us. Then we will have a break and eat, and before listening to any remaining speakers. First, then we have an interactive question and answer session. So, with that introduction, I'd like to warmly welcome our first speaker, Penny Culliford. She's our host and chaplain at the YMCA. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Right, so I'm going to talk about organ donation and Christianity. And I was just going to start with a quote from the Bible. And it's the words of Jesus here from the book of John in the New Testament of the Bible. Greater love has no one than this, to lay one's life down for one's friends. So the idea of sacrifice, self-sacrifice, is something that is very close to the heart of Christianity. So I know my own point of view, I know my church's point of view, and I did some research this week, or last week, and discovered that actually Christianity as a whole, generally speaking, seems to be very favourable about organ donation. So Christians consider organ donation, so this is when a person has passed away, when they've died, and their organs are taken out of their body to be passed on to someone, or even living donation. I know a man who has suffered with kidney failure, and his mother was able to provide a donor. So both him and his mother, I think he's 40 years old, are both still alive and doing well. So either of those examples there. So Christians consider organ donation to be an act of love and a way of following Christ's sacrificial example, though obviously Jesus himself wasn't an organ donor. And Christians believe in eternal life, preparing for death, so the person who sadly has passed away, it shouldn't be a subject of fear, and it can often be a comfort and a real sense of helping for their organs to be able to be donated for someone else to live a better life. And Christians believe that nothing that happens to our body before or after death can have an impact on our relationship with God. Our relationship with God is solid through Jesus, and whether we enter with all our organs or without something because we've donated them, it doesn't make any difference. So I've got a couple of quotes from people in the church. The first one is from the Reverend Lord Rowan Williams of Ostermouth, who is previously the Archbishop of Canterbury, so before the current one, who is Justin Welby. We had one who was called Rowan Williams. And he says, celebrating the vision and generosity of organ donors is a way of celebrating one of the most important things in our society, the willingness of countless men, women and children to think and act selflessly. If we are ever tempted to believe that we're on a downward spiral to individualism and narrow self-interest, we should remember these people and their families as a sign of hope and inspiration to us all. The former Archbishop of York, who is the Right Honourable Lord Centimore, John Centimore, said thousands of people in the UK are waiting for organ transplant to save or dramatically improve their lives. world of difference to those in need. I hope that everyone will consider whether they can give life to others after their own death. Now, these quotes are from before the organ donor register still existed. Now it's considered that you are going to fill in your organs unless you opt out. But it's still up to the family, so it's still up to the families. So I looked a bit into different denominations. I'm really hoping Linda might be able to jump in here and just clarify, because I have got some information here. So many Christian denominations wholeheartedly endorse and encourage organ donation. They include the Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox churches, Anglican churches, Methodist churches, and Seventh-day Adventist churches. And other denominations feel it's a good thing, but it is basically an individual choice. And they include Pentecostal churches, the Church of Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ, is that correct? So it's down to the individual. And Jehovah's Witnesses. And as some of you might know, there's a bit of an issue with Jehovah's Witnesses. As far as blood is concerned, most Jehovah's Witnesses will not accept blood donations. And apparently they specify they can have an organ, but it can't have the blood in it. So if it's a kidney, it's got to have the blood flushed out. If it's the heart, it's got to have the blood flushed out.
Does that work?
They can accept organ donations. Is that right? I don't know.
No. Does it work? I mean, if you drain an organ of his blood, can you transplant medically?
I don't know.
Put another fluid in before they attach it to the person's body, and then the person's own blood will go in.
I was just trying to clarify it, because I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, so I was just wanting to make sure I had that information correct. So, with an organ, it can be flushed through, but generally blood is not donated. But again, Christians, I don't know if you include blood as an organ, I don't know if anybody else is going to talk about it tonight, but very much for Christians, again, blood donation is encouraged. And there was a lovely video which I would have shown you had I been able to get my PowerPoint up, which included the Bishop of Dover actually advocating, particularly for people from ethnic groups, to be able to give blood, again, as an act of Christian sacrifice and help. And although I've never donated any of my organs for obvious reasons, I do give blood regularly. I'm very happy to do that. And I think I've done 65 donations so far, so that's nice to be able to do that. God's blessed me with a special type of blood that can help people with sickle cell, so that's really, really lovely to be able to share that. So, just thinking about one of the Christian doctrines is about after we die, we are resurrected to heaven. So the Christians believe in eternal life. So there are different doctrines which believe in either heaven or the new earth. And so it depends which denomination you are, but there is this concept that after heaven, after death, that is not the end for us, we continue somehow. And St. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 in the Bible about the resurrection. He says, Christians believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross and was resurrected to life 3 days later. And if you read that part of the Bible, the end of Luke's account and John's account, you will see one of the disciples, Thomas, going, well, I don't really believe that Jesus came back to life unless I see the holes in his hands and the hole in his side, I won't believe it. And when Jesus appeared, he did still have the marks from his crucifixion, which suggested that his body was the same. That there's no particular reason to believe that that will happen to us. Because Jesus Christ was raised, Christians believe we too can live eternally, but not in our current physical bodies, which sadly will age and die. On the day of resurrection, we'll be given new spiritual bodies, as Paul goes on to say. So will it be with the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown perishable, so our current bodies are going to fade away, is raised imperishable, so it's going to be an eternal body. It's sown in dishonour, so we were born into sin, but it's raised in glory. It's sown in weakness, and we all know that we are very prone to physical, mental, spiritual, different kinds of weaknesses, but it's raised in power. It's sown a natural body, so the bodies we're born with, but it's raised a spiritual body. Therefore, the body does not need to be intact with all its organs to be resurrected, as there will be a new body. And I've got a little image here, which I'm sure you won't be able to see, but there's a lovely little donation card which says, "Yes, I donate, NHS organ donor card," and you can see it's got a sign of the cross. And I do believe that they have those for other faiths as well. So if you look up on the NHS organ donation website, you might find it possible to be able to find a card with the symbols of your faith that you can carry. So that's a Christian one. So I think I've probably covered most of the aspects that I want to cover for the Christian view of organ donation, and I'm sure you've got some questions for us at the end after the break.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Penny, and good overview of the various Christian viewpoints. We'll cover questions later when all the speakers will be available. So now we'll request our second speaker to get ready. She's Mrs. Citronnane and Secretary of the Havering Interfaith Forum. She has an honours degree in BSc in Biomedical Studies and used to be a scientist at Moorfields Eye Hospital, where she worked with monkey eyes to be used for research to help humans. This is relevant to today's topic. She's a Muslim chaplain at the healthcare sector, including St. Luke's Hospice, and for the national organisations, the British Islamic Medical Association, BIMA. This organisation brings together Muslim healthcare professionals in the UK, and BIMA promotes contributions to healthcare and addresses medical challenges faced. So I'd like to welcome our next speaker.
Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome. It is actually World Religion Week this week, so this is why we decided to have an interfaith forum today. Now, organ donation is actually a very controversial topic within Islam, and I'm going to give you the perspective of a Muslim. Now, there's no right or wrong with organ donation, because at the time when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came, the technology was not advanced enough to do any organ donation. So we have absolutely no guidance really from him to know what is right or wrong. Okay? What we do know is that medical inventions happened after he passed away, and we do know that it was actually in the 11th century where Al-Haytham was the first person to look at the structure of the eye. So before this, nobody had even looked internally to see any of our body organs or even know what they would look like. So he was actually the first person to, in a way, study the eye structure. And it was after that the very first doctor, Al-Zahrawi, who was Muslim, he then started operations. He was the father of modern day surgery, and he actually did the very first operation, which was a cataract operation. And I'm laughing because me and Linda were having a conversation about this earlier. He was known as Abu Cassis in the West, and he wrote a 30-volume book on medicine in the 900s, used as the main medical textbook in Europe for centuries. It was him actually who then started to look at our body parts and started to study them, and then he started the very first operation. And it was after that that the very first hospital was opened in Damascus in 707, and it was there that the cataract operation started along with other operations. That was all afterwards. Okay? Now, some things we do know about. So, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in his lifetime did give us some viewpoints. So, hair was one of them. He said you're not allowed to have hair extensions, and nobody is allowed to give their own hair for that purpose. And I've actually got a quote there where somebody, it was a lady, she was losing her hair, and her husband then went to see Prophet Muhammad and said, I don't know what to do. Is she allowed to put hair extensions in? And he said, no, you're not allowed. You're actually cursed. So the quote is there for the Muslims. So you're not allowed to have hair extensions. And he also said nobody's allowed to donate their hair for hair extension purposes as well. And that also includes eyelashes as well. So you know there's all this trend nowadays of false eyelashes, great big long spider eyes. Not allowed that either, because it's you're using other people's stuff and then you're putting it on your own stuff and making it out it's yours when it's not, kind of thing. Okay? So those are in terms of hair, and the other body parts we don't know about. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an against and a for argument for everything, and then it's up to all of you to make up your own mind. Okay? There are scholars that are against it, there are scholars that are for it. To be honest with you, when the first organ donation started coming up, most of the Muslim community were against it. They said, no, that can't be, that's something foreign to us, it's never happened before. But slowly, as time has gone by and they have looked into things, slowly, people have now started to agree with it. But it's really up to us to look into all the things that I'm going to put for you. And it's exactly the same with the Jewish community. I've actually met a rabbi, and he is the rabbi at Homerton Hospital. He's an Orthodox Jew, and he shared exactly the same things. He's a chaplain as well, so I know him. So the following verse, God says, and verily we have honoured the children of Adam. Okay? So organ donation violates the honour granted to humans. So the against argument here, against organ donation is, God has created humans and granted them superiority over the rest of creation. Not everything that can be done with the other creation can be done with humans. The sacredness and sanctity of the human body is preserved by keeping within it what belongs to it. Okay, so that's the against argument. And here is the for organ donation argument. In today's context, exporting an organ from the body does not dishonour the human figure. The surgical procedures does not leave the human body visibly deformed. Therefore, it does not fall under the prohibition of dishonouring a human being. Okay? So it's up to you really to choose which one you think is the one that you feel inclined towards. And this is actually what scholars have done. Right, let's move on to the next one. So, an against argument, another one is the human body is not owned by us, it is in trust. Therefore, we cannot trade or transfer any part of it to others. Okay? Now, we definitely know for sure, because at the time of the Prophet, he actually said we're not allowed to sell our body parts, because some things were going on in those days. So we are not allowed to sell any of our body organs for business. That we do know about. There's a very big ruling on that one. And then a for argument. The universe and everything therein belongs to God, yet God himself has permitted us to trade, eat, consume and benefit from the world. Likewise, we can benefit ourselves and others with our bodies within certain parameters. Okay, so that's a 4 organ donation. The next one is actually a very strong one. There is actually a verse in the Quran that says, whoever saves a life, it is as if he had saved the whole of mankind. And that is actually a verse which promotes the preservation of life. So if you give your heart away to somebody who's dying, you are actually saving somebody's life. Okay? And there is another quote here that states, this verse refers to preserving one life or saving a life from all means of destruction in any form. Okay, and that picture's quite interesting. So there's one person there and he has saved all those people's lives. Okay, so that's a very strong one, which is 4 organ donation. Let's look at some more. There is no illness that God has created except that he also has created its treatment. That is a very strong one, which we actually used during COVID time to try and convince people to use the vaccine. So, an against one. We actually mean there, at the time of the Prophet, lots of herbal remedies were out. And the people who are against organ donation will say, you seek natural treatment for yourself, like Jesus did as well. And it does not mean that you take somebody else's organ to treat yourself. That's what that one means, what some people against organ donation would say. And then 4, organ transplant and donation is a remedy for organ failure. Jurists discuss the issue of using prohibited alcohol for medical reasons. They state that it is permissible to use a prohibited substance if there is no other treatment. So use of donated organs has been permitted for medical reasons. Even if this is prohibited, the need for organs and transfusions has become a widespread necessity. Hence, it may be permitted under the principle necessity permits the prohibited. Can anybody tell me, out of the Muslims, what do we believe about when we die, how we feel things? Does anybody know this one? Because this is a really big one.
Yes, when they do the bathing of the dead, they have to be gentle.
Why?
Because they believe that the person is aware of pressure.
Right, I need more specific words. Not aware of pressure, what else? What can they feel?
They feel pain.
They feel pain. The soul is separate from the body, but the soul is still connected to the body. So we believe the soul can still feel pain. And this is why we don't do post-mortems. Everybody knows Muslims don't do post-mortems. Why don't they? Have you ever thought about why? Okay. What about why do we not send our bodies abroad to be buried? Because you have to clean out all the organs out of their bodies. So the aeroplane's in a vacuum and then they go abroad. But why? Because we feel that the body can feel pain. So this is a really, really big one. So I'm going to cover death now. So some people say, some Muslims say, during your lifetime, you can give away your organs if it's going to save somebody else, if you've got 2 of that organ. Okay? But when you die, there's a lot more against it for that reason, because you can feel the pain. So I've got a picture there of somebody doing ghusl, which is the washing ritual when you die. And we know we have to do it very gently. Now, I've done a burial course. I did the whole works and I explained how gently you wash the body. You're not even allowed to cut the nails, are you? Okay? And you massage the face, the head very, very softly because we feel the body can feel pain. Okay? So, against, in Islam, the body should be buried whole and unharmed. Therefore, no part of the body should be cut or harmed. Okay? It's the same, isn't it, as Jews? Yeah, I know it is. Post-mortems are acceptable only if law requires it to be done. Islamic scholars view that post-mortems not founded on compelling medical or legal circumstances amounts to desecration of the body. Okay? The other one is we don't cremate. Why do we not Muslims cremate? Because we feel that the body can feel pain. Cremation is prohibited under Islamic law because it is considered a violation of the dignity of the human body. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said it is preferred to bury the dead bodies quickly as well. That's another reason, because they rot very quickly. However, some Muslims will say, no, the body can't feel pain because they're dead. Okay? Most people say that they can because of the next verse that I'm going to put up. A prophetic narration states, breaking the bone of a dead person is similar to breaking the bone of a living person. That's a very famous hadith. So against, respect for human dignity applies equally to both the living and dead. It is prohibited to break the bone or the body part of a live person, except when permitted by the law. Equally, it is prohibited to do the same for a dead person. Okay? And then the fourth argument is the hadith relates to deliberate disrespect of the human body, whereas there is no such intention in human organ retrieval. Organ transplant is less harmful than allowing another body to die. We've got another quote here where Imam al-Suyuti mentions, this was mentioned to a grave digger who found a bone in the ground and went to snap it. Scholars have stated it is addressed to the living to respect the remains of the deceased as if they were alive. Okay? So I'm hoping all this makes sense, but it's quite a complicated subject, but I hope you're all making up your mind and having your tick boxes as you go along for or against. Right, the next one. When we're in a war, even fighting with non-Muslims for self-defense purposes, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, do not disfigure the dead. And that was in relation to non-Muslims. He said, do not disfigure them. Okay? So there is another against argument. If you're not allowed to disfigure even a non-Muslim, then are you allowed to disfigure yourself when you're dead to donate an organ? Okay? So let's look at some more. 4. Another one, this is now for organ donation. Not every engagement with the human body and its organs is prohibited. Mutilation is specifically prohibited. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used to encourage giving in charity and preventive mutilation. Prophet Muhammad said, abstain from mutilation. Muthla it's called in Arabic. Mutilation from an Islamic law perspective refers to tampering with the body in a manner which changes the features of the body for the foreseeable future. When there is a need to enhance or prepare life, it is permissible to carry out surgical procedures on the human body. So there's another perspective. Right, I want you all to tell me what we believe will happen to us when we raise on the Day of Judgment, resurrection-wise. And do you know? Because it's the same as the Jewish community. If there's a limb missing, how will you be raised? You don't know? Okay, well I've asked a rabbi. Not Lee Sunderland though. I've asked an Orthodox rabbi from Homerton Hospital. So, Jews also believe this, Orthodox Jews believe this, that when you are resurrected, you will be resurrected with an organ missing or a limb missing when you're resurrected, apparently. And Muslims did believe this as well originally. So that's the against argument. Okay? Remember, we're only looking at death here, when you donate after death. During your lifetime, people have said it's fine to save another life. So let's look at the 4. The deceased body will decay. The body is of no use to the deceased in the grave or in the next life. If the body can be used to benefit others, it can be ongoing charity, sadaqah jariyah for him. So to save a life by using the organs from the deceased is fulfilling the higher objectives of Sharia to preserve life. Okay? Gosh, you're all thinking, aren't you? Deep thinking here. It's for everybody really, all this to think about, isn't it? Right, the next one. So, not saving a life because they already have one is what this one is about. Distinction between internal and external body parts. From a Sharia perspective, organs and external body parts can be divided into the following. So, against argument is organs which remove suffering, hardship and difficulty, but are not essential for survival, e.g. a kidney, an eye. One may live without these organs. So with organs where you've got two of, you can live with one eye, can't you? Yeah? In the days of the Prophet, when people had cataracts, they lived with one eye. You can live with one kidney. Okay? So that's the argument against. Why do you need to donate an organ to somebody when they've already got one of it already? And their body is working fine. Does that make sense? Okay? And then the 4th one is organs essential for survival, e.g. heart. All such organs can be donated. So the organ where you only need one of. Okay? However, it depends on the individual. Okay? Somebody has asked me for my brain recently. We want your brain once. Can you leave it in your will because we like your brain? And I said no. I said I do my ongoing charity in my lifetime. I give out all my knowledge to you all, and now you can use your own brain, can't you? Because I'm not giving away my brain. And also, brain is actually one of the things you can't transplant. Did you know? You can do a heart, but not a brain is so complicated with all the neurons and everything. You can't transplant a brain. Is that correct, doctor over there? Yes. Just in case. Right, let's carry on now. So, this is actually, you know, the organisation which you were talking about that I'm part of. If you could just quickly read the organisation name.
Yes, it's the British Islamic Medical Association, BIMA.
Yeah, now that is it's a national organisation of doctors and professionals like chaplains who have all come together, and they have actually, with scholars, come to some agreements. Okay, and this is come from them. So the use of prosthesis, forced limb is permissible. The transplant of pure animal organs and tissue is permissible, but the transplant of impure ones is not permitted, unless there is no permissible alternative. Can anybody tell me what we're talking about here?
Pig hearts.
Yes, pig organs, yes. Which Muslims are not allowed, and it's the same as Judaism as well.
They've done a transplant of pigs with the heart.
Yeah, but we are not allowed to do. We are not allowed. This is an Islamic perspective only. Replant and auto-transplant of human organs and tissue is permissible, e.g. bone marrow and stem cells is allowed, and blood, eventually people have come to the conclusion it's okay, although originally it was, when I grew up anyway, as a child, it was a no, and it was the same as the Jehovah's Witnesses that you explained about. It depends how orthodox you are. Okay? Living altruistic, free without payment, intention made for God to get good deeds, organ donation is permissible, provided harm to the donor is negligible or relatively minor, that it does not disrupt the life of the donor. Okay? It is permitted to donate stem cells from adult tissue of a minor with parental permission, cord blood, a miscarried fetus, a fetus aborted for a reason valid in Sharia, and a surplus embryo incidental to the process of IVF. Okay? So a placenta cord, for example, you can use that as well. Because it's got no use, you see. It usually goes in the incinerator anyway, doesn't it? The situation is one of medical necessity. There is a chance, or if there is a chance of success, you can. The organ or tissue is donated with the willing consent of the deceased, i.e. in their will, for example, or the procedure is conducted with the same dignity as any other surgery. Okay? The other one is repair of burns. So I do know Muslims who have burnt their hands while they're frying all the samosas and the pakoras. And then they can have skin grafts on there to cover that. That is allowed. And an artificial limb is fine, knee replacement and all of that kind of stuff seems okay. Nobody has questioned that before. Okay? Now, in the university where I work, there is a massive medical department where all the doctors, they all, graduate. And I know there is a huge shortage, actually, of dead bodies that they can experiment on, and also other types of organs that they can experiment on. Huge shortage. When I was growing up, I loved biology, and I do remember a heart, and we were looking at all the aorta and everything. So you could donate it for educational purposes as well. So that's also something to think about. It's not just saving people's lives, it's also donated to educate people and help them to become doctors who will then in turn save lives, if that makes sense. So that's something to think about as well. Okay, and I've got the conclusion now, which is also from this organisation. So when organ donation is an effective route to help others with organ failures and illnesses, the honour of the deceased body should be disregarded and overlooked in order to benefit the living. The benefit one's organs can give to others shows the value of these organs and the nobleness of the deceased. Surrendering one's organs to assist the ailing living is a very honourable gift. The organs are valued by their continuous use as opposed to letting them decay and rot. According to international scholars and research of the Islamic Fiqh Academy, it is permissible to offer one's organs for donation, subject to the need, medical advice, consent of the deceased before his death or by his heirs after his death, or by the authorities in charge of the Muslims if the identity of the deceased is unknown or he has no heirs. And God alone knows best. We always say that when we don't know. Okay? If you want to learn more about this topic, I actually did a big training course on the rituals of death. It's on my YouTube channel, that's the thumbnail. I'm also due to do another one of these on 1st of February, and it will be at Anglia Ruskin University where I work, and it will be there. So if you are interested in attending that big burial course, where I will talk about organ donation, I will show you how to wash your body, and all the rites, funeral rites and everything, you're all welcome to come along to that. Okay, that brings me to the end.
Thank you very much to both main speakers today, and thank you for Now I believe some of our other speakers want to say a few words. I'll welcome John Lester, Chair of our Havering Interfaith Forum. He wishes to say a few words. Then it'll be Slackware, a member of the committee, and Linda Kane wants to say a few words as well. So welcome to John Lester. Thank you, John.
Not an awful lot to say, I suppose, really. Baha'u'llah's writings do not mention organ donations, but the great-grandson of Baha'u'llah, Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the faith, whose interpretations of the writings we obviously accept, when asked about the eye bank donating his eyes in death, said there is nothing against him in the writings. Indeed, it seems a noble thing to do. So that is obviously a sign of approval. The key thing is that there's no mutilation of the body, that the body is treated with respect and reverence, but otherwise it's entirely up to the individual whether they want to donate their organs or not. I used to be a blood donor, but then I got hepatitis, and that ended my blood donoring activities, but that of course is particularly exceptional. We don't believe in a day of judgment where bodies return. What age would you be if you return? For example, and would you come back all nice and whole, or if you were blind, would you come back, etc. We believe that when you leave this plane, then you go on and you progress in all the worlds of God. and it's a spiritual thing. So the body is a house, that a flat, if you like, that you've left behind you. No need for it anymore. So that's about it, really. I don't think there's very much more to say, except that, as I say, it's up to the individual. It's a noble thing to do, said Yogi Effendi, and of course, the whole thing about the Baha'i faith is helping other people. And if you die in the knowledge that you will be helping other people perhaps to see who couldn't see before, to stay alive, and so on, then it's very much positive. It's a very unselfish act. And John got to use. I did wonder when my wife died, there was a sudden urgent need for her false teeth. And I thought, why is she going to need false teeth? I suppose it was something about the structure of the mouth. So there are all kinds of things that your teeth, not all your teeth are what you had to begin with, and you have skin grafts and everything. So there are things that are as I say, totally yours. That's about it. And so it's a noble thing to do. It's helping humanity. It's helping other people, and it's entirely up to the individual behind whether he or she wishes to do it.
Thank you, John, for a very wonderful summary. We'll go to Latvia, Singapore, for seeking some view on the same topic, organ donation. Thank you.
It doesn't attach to the organ donation and transplantation, and stresses that saving a human life is one of the noblest things you can do. Sikhs also believe that your body doesn't need all its organs at all after death. And Guru Nanak, our first prophet, is the founder of the Sikhism and the first of the 10 gurus, and Sikh Holy Script, our Guru Granth Sahib, devoted their lives of hundreds of humanities and sacrificed lives looking after the welfare of the others. The Sikh religion teaches that life continues after death in the soul and not in the physical body. The last act of the giving and helping others through the organ donation is both consistent with the end in the spirit of the Sikh teaching. And also, as in Guru Granth Sahib says, Daan and Seva is a Punjabi word, and Daan actually also is a Sanskrit word as well. Seva is a Punjabi word. It means the act of the selfless service to give without seeking reward and recognition. That means Seva and Daan. That's what it said in the Guru Granth Sahib. It means you can do the native organ, Daan means to do that. It doesn't say actually all the organs. If you go in detail, you can do Daan, Seva, which is you can provide somebody, right, to save somebody's life. That's Seva. And Daan, if you give your organ to somebody, it's Daan. It's actually on those days not such technology to prove these things. You can say, or maybe they're on the Jari Bootiyan they call, right? The Hakim, they call Hakim on those days, not fully qualified doctors. And they used to, my grandfather used to do it a lot, and they used to do the medicine, right? And people used to come, my mother used to say, or people used to come home from different. Sometime one day, my mother told me, my grandfather got a bandage. He took his turban out and tore it and do the service. That's also a seva, right? You can do it that way. As you know, lots of thousands of people live across this UK are served each year by organ transplant. transplants, but every day across the UK, someone died waiting for organ transplantation. And you know, if we last year in 2021-22, 420 people died because they didn't get the organs, and doctors saved our life 4,400 people to transfer organ from other people. So I think that the doctors are very, I think I'm proud for these people who really work hard. And the other thing, just to Sidra said earlier on about the Islamic, I had somebody spoken before, and he said equality, the Quran says that if anyone saves a life, it is as he saved the life of all humankind. In 1995, the Muslim law Sharia Council UK issued the fatwa, religious ethics, saying organization is permitted. Is 1995. It's already passed the law. Thank you very much.
Very clear, short summary, very nice. Now I'd like to welcome our guest speaker again for a short talk by Linda Kane, the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints. Thank you.
I just think it's so wonderful the way so many faiths, first of all, have a desire and even a commandment within their faiths to love one another, and to be able to have a kind of a part of sacrifice within that faith. And even when it's left up to the individual to decide, I think it's absolutely wonderful that people are willing to sacrifice something of themselves, whether they're living and they're obviously able, there's a spare one of them or something, or that they leave it in their will, or even on government sites these days. I applied for a little driving licence with my picture on, because I only had the old pink one that I'd had since about 1977. It doesn't have a photo, it's not a photo card. It's really hard to kind of use ID unless you don't really want to use your passport. And there's actually on a lot of government websites now a little inclusion that you can say whether you want to be an organ donor or not. And I was like, of course I'll do that. You know. And I've given blood as well, and I try to do that whenever I'm feeling well enough. And it's something that is encouraged, giving blood and helping one another, serving one another in our faith as well. And I've just got a little official bit here I was looking for, and it's in our church policies and guidance general handbook about organ and tissue donations and transplants. And they mention here as well, it's a selfless act that often results in great benefit to individuals with medical conditions. And the decision of a living person to donate an organ to another, or to receive a donated organ, should be made with competent medical counsel and prayerful consideration. And I think probably this is something that most faiths would share. You would want to go to the Lord in prayer to confirm that it's the right thing for you to do, it's your right personal choice, and it'll be good for your body and it'll benefit someone else. The decision to authorise the transplant of organs or tissue from a deceased person is made by the person when they're alive, or by his or her family, as I think most faiths do that. When facing severe illness, members should exercise faith in the Lord and seek competent medical assistance. And however, when dying becomes inevitable, it should be seen as a blessing and a purposeful part of eternal existence. So in other words, is there something that we could offer to another member of the human race that would benefit them to prolong their life. And we actually believe that, like most Christians probably, that when our bodies die, our spirit still lives on, and we don't, the spirit, the body then is like an empty shell or like an empty case, and it doesn't feel pain, but nevertheless, when we are preparing that body for burial, which I have had the great honour to do several times, we treat that body with the utmost respect, and so that that person's dignity remains intact. And we do believe that bodies are like a tabernacle. They are very precious in the sight of the Lord, and we are to treat them as such, what we take into our bodies and how we treat them, and how we treat other people's bodies too. And so we believe that when we are resurrected, then we will have returned to our bodies everything that we had here. Actually, all perfections will be done away. Not a single hair on the head will be lost. Everything will be restored to its proper frame and order, so that being resurrected will be a glorious part of the eternities and exaltation. I think that's about it, actually.
I'm not here for the food, but now the best part, we'll have some food. Then we'll have a question and answer session later. And I'll stop there and attack the food. Thank you.
Because I corresponded with him a lot this morning.
Then he can film the
You know, parents actually
Seats, please. Ready for receiving the questions. So everybody, if you have a question, lift your hands up. And secondly, we're going in a rotation system, so it's fair to everybody. First hand I saw up was Norman at the back. Second was Mrs. Natalie, and the third one was Kate. So we will ask our respective Norman to ask the first question.
Okay, so if this is aimed for everyone, is that possible? Everybody to answer?
Okay,
Yeah, so is organ donation a moralistic, voluntary and spiritualistic obligation in society?
Okay, so shall I start? It's not an obligation, it's not obligatory, it's voluntary, isn't it? So, like I said before, the Prophet didn't do it, but it didn't exist in his days. It definitely is not obligatory, it's actually voluntary if we want to, and if the circumstance comes up, and like I explained when I did the talk, you know, it's up to every individual whether they want to or if they don't. We have a free choice on this matter.
Can I just say something regarding that? According to the NHS, if you don't opt out, if you die and they can use your organ, they will do it with the family consent, that you have to opt out if you don't want to have the choice. If you want choice, you have to opt out.
Yeah. What my suggestion is, which what I would do, is that in your lifetime decide, and opt out if you don't want to. If you are not sure and you're still making up your mind, then write it in the will exactly what you want to do. Then that is your other way.
Or discussing with your family.
Yeah, but even discussing with family is not good enough. It's better to have it in writing, and you write it in your will. In that way, it's concrete what you want.
So second speaker, is the organ donation obligatory? That was what was asked.
Well, under British law, then there is an obligation to donate, just as this lady here was saying. So you can opt out. As far as Christians are concerned, obviously I haven't spoken to every Christian on the planet, but the general theme seems to be, no, it's not obligatory, but why would you not want to save a life?
Okay, we'll move on to the second question from our audience, Natalie. Yes.
I have a question. The question that interests me is that none of you seem concerned about the definition of death. And certainly when several years ago, when I went to a Jewish religious conference and they went to the talk on that, they were very concerned about the definition of death. And in fact, I wrote to Lee about this last night. And I can read, if I can read what I wrote and what he wrote. My impression from Limud 9 years ago is that there are problems around the definition of death. Transplants that can be taken from bodies that have stopped breathing are okay, but if blood has been kept circulating by artificial means, then transplants are not allowed. I can't remember if the faith of donors was discussed. Can you take an organ from somebody not of your faith? And I said, is my memory correct? He replied at 7:24 this morning, pretty much so, but I won't spoil it for you if you're coming. So obviously this morning at 7:24, he was intending to be here. So, but I remember that there was in the discussion, and this was 9 years ago, the Jewish view might have changed since then, I don't know, but when you decide whether somebody is dead.
Yes, I think I'm not in a position to answer that myself, the definition of death. But
when does your faith decide that somebody has died?
Yeah.
If you're keeping circulation going
yes.
On a machine,
Yes.
to keep the internal organs basically sort of functioning, do you regard the person as dead or not? Can you do transplants? I was hoping that I would get some insights from other faiths.
Yes.
The doctor can answer this question.
Oh.
So I think that's a question for the doctor, isn't it? How can you define where somebody dies?
Okay, good question. So it's very simple. Death is the absence of life. So you tell me what you mean by absence of life.
Well, my view is not actually very relevant because, quite honestly, I think that most people are kept alive for far too long. I think I am not for keeping people alive where they no longer enjoy anything, where they're no longer conscious of just keeping breathing. But that's my own personal view, and it's not the view of any particular faith. But I am interested in what the various faiths. So if you've got somebody who's brain dead, but you are you've got them up to a heart-lung machine so that the blood is circulating to keep the heart viable for a heart transplant. I think the Jews, and 9 years ago, they were not regarding that person as dead. So they were only doing transplants where you could take the organ out of a body which was, by all definitions dead. This is my memory from 9 years ago, but so I might be wrong, but I would be interested to know if any of the other faiths regard this as a problem.
Not really. I think from a medical point of view, there's two ways of determining death. One is circulatory death,
Yes.
where the heart and lungs have stopped working, there's no blood flowing, no oxygen to the brain, the body is dead.
But if they're
So
working
there's-
because you've got them onto a machine which is pumping.
So the second definition is then brain death or brain stem death.
Yes.
So that you can decide even if somebody's on a circulatory machine.
Hmm.
So again, that's a principle for doctors to follow. So you don't need to worry about whether somebody's dead or not. 2 independent doctors will determine that for you. So it's all laid out in national guidelines. So public opinion is important. Obviously, your opinion was important because the laws reflect public opinion. The laws are made by politicians who are elected as your representatives. So that's all
The
reflected
laws,
in the
the laws are behind public opinion, I think.
Well, I mean, these are technical issues. Obviously, if you want to
Yes,
debate
but
with experts, you're entitled to. But the definitions are quite strict. And if somebody's brain dead or brain stem death, whether they've got a circulation through the machine, if the brain stem is not functioning, then really they're dead. As soon as you take them off the machine, everything will stop.
Can I quickly add in there, because you asked specifically about faith, in the Quran, death is actually mentioned clearly that it's brain stem. That is when you know somebody is dead. And modern day scientists have actually done experiments and they've found that person is properly dead once the brain goes.
So
not when
you
the
have-
heart goes.
you have-
And sorry, can I just finish? So there is a lecture which Lacray just reminded me of on faith and death, which we did. And in there is a video, and you can watch that video, and that's about Islam and death, which is related to brain stem.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you. We'll move on to John Lester, our chairman. He wants to contribute to
Well,
the
just
answer.
going to say that how do we tell when someone's dead is that it's medically decided that the doctor comes, no breathing, no heart, this person's dead, and then you go and get a death certificate. Once you've got a death certificate and everything, then that person's dead. But before that, no, they're not. Even if they've been kept artificially alive, no, not dead.
Okay. So we'll move on to our third question now. Okay.
Yeah, my name is Cassandra. Like us, you don't believe in post-mortem.
Yeah.
What do you have in your religion? Do you have the same as us, body scans?
Yes, so we basically, if it's not needed, if the cause of death is known, we don't need
Yes,
a
same
post-mortem.
same as us.
Yeah. Then after that, it's a CT scan, I think, that we...
We call out the body scan, because when my friend, when Diane died,
Yeah.
because she died, we found her that. They
Yes.
wanted to do a post-mortem,
Yeah.
and of course we had it stopped.
Yes.
And they sent us for a body scan because we believe
A
that
body
the body has
scan
to be,
is a CT scan.
yeah, because
Yes.
the body has to be very whole
Yes.
without any cuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yours is the same. isn't it?
Yes, so if I can just finish. So a CT scan is recommended. However, on the NHS, a CT scan is not free. Post-mortem is free. Okay, so we have a big problem here. With the Jewish community, their synagogues, they raise money, which then pays for that CT scan. And Jews, so they've been in this country a long, long time. They have got established communities that do this. However, in Islam, we don't have that yet. We have not come to the stage where we request public funds for CT scans. So it costs a lot of money if the family wants to do that. So a lot of the time we go ahead with the post-mortem, but only because it's in the law that it is done, and we follow the law of the land. So we then have to get the post-mortem done, but that's the last resort if we don't have the money for a CT scan. And also, if it's not needed, if it's, for example, somebody where we know the condition on why they passed away, a heart attack or cancer or whatever else, then we don't need it. Okay? So that's what we do.
Can I just ask a question regarding that? So the same thing, if a post-mortem is compulsory,
Yes.
because the cause of death is questionable, what does the CT scan do? It replaces the
CT
investigation?
scan is better because it doesn't allow cutting up of the body to look inside.
It reveals the same thing.
It reveals the same thing in detail without cutting up all the body.
Okay, I could put that in my
Like an
will.
X-ray, you see?
Yeah.
Like an X-ray. And then it bypasses this problem that when you're dead, your body feels the pain when it's cut up and
So
things.
the authorities will be satisfied with the CT scan.
Oh, definitely. In fact, it's very detailed, but it does cost a lot of money. It's not free on the NHS, whereas a post-mortem is in the law and that is free on the NHS. That's what the problem is amongst the Muslim communities.
Sorry, can I just ask a question of Sidra on that subject?
Yes.
So if it's a sort of violent death and the police are involved or something like that, it would have to be a post-mortem.
Yes.
It would have to be illegal.
Oh, definitely, because it's in the law that if you do not know the cause of death and something needs to be investigated, then that person needs to have a post-mortem. However, the families can then turn around and say, oops, we don't want a post-mortem, we'll have a CT scan done instead, we will pay, however hundreds it is, and that is absolutely fine because the result is exactly the same.
And if that's in the will, that will be observed.
Yes, you need to let your families know and possibly leave a pot of money as well for that scan. Otherwise, you know, they may not, they say, oh, she's dead now, she isn't going to know. We will get the post-mortem. It's neat.
The new questioner at the back, the gentleman. Yes, carry on.
My name is Wakas. Actually, I just have a question for Sidra. We are custodian of our body. God has created this body and we look after this body until that. And after that, whoever the family member, they need to do it. What does the law says about this? If somebody did not give the consent about giving the organs, how come, is it not illegal that government decided by itself that they need to do the postmortem or they need to donate the organs without the person's will?
Yeah, it is in the law. So if you don't opt out, then it's in the law that they will use your body parts if it's needed for things. It's in the law. Post-mortem is also in the law. So if they do not know the cause of death, then yes, they will do a post-mortem. Okay? Unless you opt out with the organ donation and you write it in your will that I don't want a post-mortem when I die, I want a CT scan.
Isn't there a central register that you register that you don't, that you're opting out?
Yes, through the government, yes, because there's an opt-out scheme, and yes, then they have your name, don't they? Yes, that's
So you can
correct.
register
You can.
if you want to opt out.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have to put it in your will because they might not read your will in time. So,
Yeah.
but
No, why I mention the will is some people, they don't opt out, they say they
Yes.
think about it,
yeah.
but then they write it in their will so the family knows. But I think the best option is to make up your mind, especially after today. You've got enough information there. Make up your mind, go home and opt in or opt out. Actually, you don't have to opt in. If you leave it, it means you're fine with it.
But you can also specify, so if you want your heart to be used but not your eyes, your lungs to be used but not your kidneys or whatever, or you can specify particular organs, and you can specify you want it for saving lives or for medical research, or just say have anything that you want that will further, further the cause and further medical help with people, like Sidra mentioned with education.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Any new questioner with the question? Otherwise, we'll move back to Noman for second opportunity. So, Brother Noman, yes.
Is it true, I don't know whether I read it somewhere on the internet, that they are making artificial or biological organs like biological heart, and is because there is a shortage of organs. Is that the way of the future in your opinion, or is it only a sort of like trial experiment at the moment?
At the moment, it's experiment, and they haven't yet been able to make organs, and I don't think they will, because if you look at the intricate design which God has made, it's irreplaceable in my opinion. How can you make a heart with all the, blood going through it? However, little tiny things have been made, not major organs. For example, I mentioned, knee replacement therapy, things, and bones and things you can get, cataracts, lenses, things like that you can get. But I would definitely say things like the heart and the brain, they cannot be replicated.
Lungs, how could you,
Do that, you just
They're
can't.
using stem cells to create certain things.
But they're not, at the moment, they're not in process as in, they haven't been put inside bodies. I mean, the other really important thing here is that I've actually got, I was just talking to my husband earlier about 2 people who I know whose kidneys failed, and then their brothers or their sisters donated a kidney for them to save them, and it didn't work. The body rejected it, even with their own brother and sister. You think with the genetics, one of them is actually a twin. So the twin then donated a kidney, but the body rejected it. It didn't work. So it doesn't always work either.
New person with a question?
I once stood in Romford Marketplace handing out organ donor cards. It was a Rotary initiative, and the men were too shy to go and accost people, so I went and did it. And I noticed that there were certain groups of people who said anything but eyes. And now, none of them, no white people said that. So white people said, yes, or they said no. But the eye thing was with basically brown people. And obviously I'm not going to ask them what religion they are, but I have wondered, are they more likely to have been Hindu of some sort or a Muslim? Do you have any opinions on that? I obviously can't, I can't go and ask these people.
So
people who would say, yes, you can have things, but you can't have my eyes.
Right.
Eyes is a particular sort of no-no to some people of basically of Asian heritage, should we say. But I was interested, but I couldn't, obviously I'm not going to stop and say, hang on a second. Okay, I can tell from your dress that you're a Muslim, but the girls wearing just jeans and whatever, I'm not going to ask them what faith they're in. Anyway, it was completely irrelevant.
Yeah. There is one thing which some Muslims may say is that when you donate your eyes to somebody else, they may do something bad with that. So they may be looking at bad things, for example. Pornography is one example, okay? But my stance on that is that that's the sin of the person itself, not that sin won't go upon the person who donated the eyes, okay? So on the Day of Judgment, we believe that our lips will be sealed and our body parts will speak to God, that this person did this sin with me and this person did this sin with me. The eyes will say, this person sinned by doing this with me, and the hands will say, this person sinned by doing this with me. But what we believe is, it's that soul, when that soul had those body parts, that is what will be registered, not where the body part went afterwards. That would be the sin of that person. Do you see? So that's the only thing that I can think about really with the eyes. The other one I'm thinking about is on the day of resurrection, they may feel we won't be able to see anything. Because I did mention, didn't I, that on the day of resurrection, there are some thoughts that you are, that body part is missing. So if you haven't got any eyes, how will you see where to go?
Well,
so that's the other one that I can think of, if there were Muslims.
I was just going to say about this bodies on the day of resurrection. Exactly what age are you going to be?
At the age we died, apparently.
That's not much,
But-
is it?
but when we go into heaven,
heaven,
when we go into heaven, we will all be at our prime ages. So the men will be 40, which is the age of wisdom, apparently, and the age when a lot of the prophets became prophets.
How old was women?
And the women will be 32. Yeah, that's the prime age. But obviously we will be more youthful, we will be young forever. We will be full of energy. We will be tall and strong. We will have no body parts missing. We will have no illnesses whatsoever. It's going to be heaven, isn't it?
Sounds like utopia.
We will be young and, fit and healthy.
So at the time, day of judgment, Islam says we will wake up the way we died. Is it right? I don't know. I heard exactly the same thing.
Yes.
You said just 40 years. And
No, that's when you go to heaven afterwards. But when we are resurrected, we will be resurrected the same as we passed away. Same age. But that's just the resurrection, you see. Then we will be judged by God. Then He will send us to heaven. And then that is when we will all be young and beautiful and wonderful, once we get into the atmosphere of heaven. But when we're resurrected, we haven't been judged yet. So people who are bad, they will be all dark and looking horrible and will be really hot. There will be sweating going on, and the sun would have come near, there will be no shade. And the people who are really good, their faces will be shining and they'll be shaded and things like that. So if you watch my Day of Judgment lecture, Eamon, you know my YouTube channel, I just did it actually a couple of weeks ago. Facilla came to the Day of Judgment lecture. It's all in there.
Scary.
Okay? It's scary, but it's
So
good as
can you
well.
relate something with your soul and body regarding that judgment day, regarding this topic?
Yes, your soul will go back inside your body, when you're resurrected, you will rise up again from the coccyx bone, and we will be completely right down to our fingertips, it says in the Quran. We will be reassembled again. Then we will be judged by God, and then He will send us to either heaven or hell, depending on our deeds. And that it's in heaven then that we will be all young and everything will be absolutely wonderful.
Bodies which is burned, or bodies which are
Incomplete.
not incomplete, which are burned or
Yes.
and converted into ash. So how about those bodies? I've never
Yes.
heard about this transition from waking up in this.
Yes. So bodies that are cremated, did you know that everything is disintegrated except that coccyx bone? The coccyx bone has stem cells in it, and from there everybody will get reassembled again, even if you were cremated. The whole world will resurrect again, every single person. Okay? Just watch that lecture, the Day of Judgment. It's on my YouTube channel. It was only put on a couple of weeks ago. It's got everything in it that you're asking. Eamon, you know my YouTube channel details, don't you?
Okay.
Okay.
I've got a
Can I just ask
question. Basically, everybody's going to die. So if I develop a terminal illness and the doctors say you've got 6 months to live or 1 year to live, I mean, that's not a fact, whether it's going to be 6 months or 1 year. It could be 3 months, it could be 2 years. So then the decision to give away one organ one organ of two or one organ of one, would that be a personal choice, or can religion allow to give away a heart and one organ, knowing that you're going to die anyway, whether it's 6 months theoretical or 2 years or 3 months, we don't know.
Yeah, it's a personal decision. It's not in the religion.
But I don't think medically in this country you can go, I'm going to die in 2 years, have my heart.
Yes.
I don't think you're allowed to make that
Yes.
decision.
No, it's when I die, then I would like my heart to go for these purposes.
And obviously some diseases, some diseases would prohibit organ donation. So I know when my dad died, they weren't able to donate his organs. Although some conditions you can actually use part of it. You can still use the cornea, is that right? Even if the person's had a disease that maybe has affected other systems of the body, might not affect the eyes.
Yes.
Kate, you had a question?
There's a new cemetery on the A12, just as you come round Garrett, the Brook Street roundabout. Is that a Muslim cemetery?
It is supposed to be a Muslim cemetery. It has not opened yet. It is the third part of 2 other cemeteries. It's called the Gardens of Peace. One part is in Hainault. The second part then is in Chigwell. and the third part is being opened in Romford. At the moment it's just an open space, but this is all new, so looking again at the Jewish community that had been established for years here, all of that happened way back. So the Jewish community have already got cemeteries. In the olden days, Muslims had to be buried within Christian cemeteries, although in the 80s they started having little plots separating their area from the rest of the Christian graveyards. But more recently, I would say in the last 15 to 20 years, they have now started to open Muslim cemeteries, mainly because of the washing facilities, which are obligatory in Islam, which we wash the whole body before burying it, and also the shrouding with the white cloth and everything. We have that. Yeah. So because of those facilities, and we have a special prayer as well, which we do before the body is buried. And because of that, it's easier to have our own graveyards where you can do everything all together. Yes.
I just have a quick question. You know, you said to leave it in your will, but if it took place then, you've got to know, you've got to register on the NHS organization website, or you tell your family, because they've got to take that organ as quickly as possible so it will go cold. You can't wait for will reading.
Yes, yes. So better than to just go on the website and press donate. And all the little sections are on there. What would you like to donate, when, and all of that. I don't know if anybody's been on it, but I've got no intention of, at the moment, doing anything, but I have looked at it. And it is important, really, that you at least look at the questions.
I opted out, but also another thing I'd like to say, not question. If you're a Muslim and you don't want to donate your organ, then you shouldn't, by right, accept an organ donation.
Yes, because that's being a bit hypocritical. If you accept one, then you should be ready to donate as well. Really. Yeah, it's the same rulings, isn't it, really?
Because you bury your people's blood past very quick, don't you?
Yes, the next day is supposed to be, yes.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to meant it's selfish to not donate and then accept one if you need it because you want to stay alive.
Yes. With the burial, again, it's, you know, the rotting of the body starts straight away, doesn't it? This is why we bury on the same day if we can, because of the rotting of the body, which then causes harm then, doesn't it, really? Yes.
I've got a question, just on the same that Sid said about if you don't want to donate, don't accept. What about somebody who is critically ill and requires, say, a new kidney or a heart or something, but doesn't want to accept that donation because they firmly believe that I don't want to take something else's body part. So can they let themselves die? Would that be Islamically correct?
Yes, because all good and bad is from God, and we also know all illnesses get rid of your sins. And if you look at the olden days, before all this organ donation business started, if you had an illness, then you just died, didn't you, naturally?
So in today's society, there is a chance that you could survive if somebody was to donate. But
personal choice again.
That's
personal choice again.
That would be against Islam?
No, it's still a personal choice because it's nowhere written in Islam that you have to do that.
I think blood donation, they will do it anyway, whether you want it or not. But organ donation is something else.
Yes.
If you don't want an organ donation to keep you alive, then you don't have to have it. But blood donor, you'll have to have blood if they think it's to save your life.
I think when it comes to the NHS and medical stuff, it is still up to you.
No, but
Still, if you
blood.
refuse it, you refuse it. I know so many people. I mean, I was just speaking to somebody the other day, a sister, actually, you know, because you were on that talk, and she was talking about her mum, wasn't she, who is bipolar and doesn't take the medication. And I just spoke to her today, and she said she's at her last. You know, her mum is not taking the medication, and nothing the authorities can do about that because you can't force. She said she had the mental health team round today, and they all said to her, take it, it's good for you. She said no, so then they turned around and went. They said, well, what can we do at the end of the day? You cannot force anybody. You're free will when you are, you know, an adult especially.
But I've heard stories with Jehovah's
I was going to say
Witnesses.
that, yeah.
The law, they can have a they can take it to court and get the law, make the person accept their blood to keep that person alive. The medical team thinks it's right and go against the wishes of the believers.
I think I can answer that one. Should we have a doctor back here again? If somebody refuses treatment, what do you do? Can you come and tell us? Because this is important, please. That's why you're here today.
Yeah, so basically nobody can force you to have treatment at all.
Exactly.
Apart from if you've got mental illness, you're at risk, or you're risking somebody else's life. Or children.
But families can take the medical team to court because there have been recent examples where children
Children are different.
Children are different, they're underage, and the guardian is in charge of them. But not adults. I know plenty of adults who, you know, it's their own choice, isn't it? Their own choice to go to the police, it's their own choice to contact social services, it's their own choice to get the medication that people have prescribed. It's up to them, isn't it?
I would like to add in this one, I think in Islamic perspective as well, it says your main obligation to look after your body.
Yes.
So you, by harming yourself or even putting a tattoos is not allowed in Islam. That's the main reason you cannot harm your body.
Yes, that's
And by rejecting the medicine is against Islamic and by law. I think it's by law is against as well. But as
no,
you
it's
mentioned,
not against the law because it's just said that you can't force. He is a doctor,
So,
qualified doctor. But Islam, yes, Islam tells you look after your bodies. So if you're neglecting your body, your mental health, your physical health, that's wrong. That's against
and in
Islam.
case of you died not having rejecting those medicine, you are committing suicide, and that is also against the
That,
Islam.
correct. That's spot on. Yeah.
I think
Suicide
that's
is not allowed. That's different to what they were
It's
asking.
not suicide. If you're terminally ill and the treatment is going to make you suffer, then it's not suicide. You can refuse treatment. So if you're going to have chemotherapy, major surgery, you're going to die in 3 months, 1 week, 1 month. Why would you have the treatment and go through that pain and suffering?
Yes.
So it's not suicide.
Yes.
If
Depends
you
on
stab
the
yourself and kill yourself or hang yourself, that's suicide.
That's suicide.
We're not refusing treatment.
It depends if the terminal ill bit is there.
Yeah.
So one of my friends, she had cancer, and she was on chemotherapy, and it was really, really painful for her. And then she had only, I think, 2 months to live anyway, because the cancer had spread everywhere. And the doctors again said you can have chemotherapy, but then she refused it. She said, what's the point if I'm dying anyway in 2 months' time? And the chemotherapy really, really makes her ill. So in that case, she refused it. Yeah.
Can I just say, if anybody, we're not talking body parts here, but if anybody is a blood donor or would like to become a blood donor, we do actually have blood donor sessions happening here at various points. I don't know the dates for the next ones, but now you know this place, a nice big free car park and everything. As I say, they're particularly looking for people from particular ethnic backgrounds because sometimes that's the best blood to give to our community who need. Yeah.
I was told I was underweight when I wanted to get it. That was in the old days.
Questions are exhausted and we'll round up and summarise. I'd like to say that all the religion, faith views are positive on the topic of organ donation on the whole, and words like individual choice was introduced by a Baha'i speaker, and the Sikh speaker used the word noble act and also act of savior, serving others and humanity with your body and your time, and Islam and Christianity saw it positively and encouraged it as a sign of love for others or love for life. With the final comment is that next meeting is on 15th of February. So, and the topic for our Havering Interfaith Forum is how my faith came to Britain. It will be 7 p.m. And I bid you good night and a safe journey home.
And a happy new year, Cherry.
And God bless. Thank you.